Romer, who's publisher of the Weather Wealth Commodity newsletter. And of course, he advises hedge funds, also farmers and commodity traders who need to be able to tell the future to the extent that you can in order to protect themselves and hedge these markets. So, Jim, talk to us about this particular hurricane, now tropical storm, and the season that's likely to be. Does it mean that all commodity prices will rise?
Well, first of all, as Wade, just to reiterate what he was saying, absolutely climate change is a factor, not La Nina right now, which I think won't form actually till the late fall or winter. And just to recap real quickly, the last hurricane that hit the Houston area, this storm looks like it'll go toward Galveston and come up the coast closer to Houston, was in 2017. It wiped out refineries with 40 inches of rain. The price of crude oil actually went down because demand was weakened. And that's one reason why you're seeing natural gas prices soften. Really not having an effect on the platforms and rigs in the Gulf of Mexico. Those are much further east. And also a cooler period recently in the Midwest has also pressured natural gas. So anyway, I expect this storm to re-intensify on Monday and perhaps go up the coast. Could be an explosive development once again to at least a Category 2 by Monday.
Yeah, so, wow, fascinating. I mean, that's the energy markets, right? So you're saying these days, at least for the natural gas market, it impacts demand more than supply. And so that's why we see the price go down to crazy lows when we see a weather event that you might anticipate would send gas higher. Not so much the case maybe for crude oil. But what about soft commodities, things like, whatever gets planted in these areas? And I'm sure it depends on what state you're talking about. But I mean, do whole crop seasons get ruined?
Not really. I mean, typically hurricanes are affecting some of the equity markets. Bond prices could be hit in certain areas where there's exposure to climate and hurricane risk. Stocks like Generac, for example, the battery company for regenerating batteries, those stocks tend to go up. Home Depot, things like that. As far as commodities go, right now what I'm looking at is a drought developing in the Ukraine that may help the wheat market rally, which has been in the doldrums, and also some of the bearishness I see in commodities right now with La Nina forming later on this year is perhaps in markets like sugar and cocoa that have major bull markets because of climate change and El Nino destroying crops this last year. We could look at an increased production for those commodities. So from a soft commodity perspective, this is more of an energy play. Everybody thinks it's bullish energies. Well, if we have one after another in Louisiana and the Central Gulf, yes. But in the Southwest Gulf near Texas, this actually hurts demand and can actually weaken crude oil and natural gas prices, which we saw happen today.
Hey, Jim, I want to go back to something that you said earlier when you were talking about our guest, Will Wade, earlier and the effect of climate change. You've been doing this for 35 years. I'm wondering if you can speak to any data that you've seen in recent years that has made your job different as a result of the climate shifting.
Certainly has. I mean, we've seen multiple hurricanes go from a Cat 1 to a Cat 5 within 24 to 36 hours. Never happened in history. Absolutely, the climate has been warming. And this makes some of the computer models that we have wrong at times. So I have my own in-house climate predict program that I've been using and developing with a friend from MIT that takes into account climate change and tries to project weather 6 months to 9 months in advance for commodity traders and farmers all over the world. So, I'm always learning things every single day. Chaos theory, climate change, things are always changing. And, we just have to keep one step ahead of this for our clients because the weather's just become so extreme, not only here in the United States, but all over the world.
Where are you seeing the most extreme weather right now? Like what parts of the world are you seeing that?
It's incredible. Obviously with the war in Ukraine going on, the last thing they want is a drought. And it's a little bit too late to really adversely affect the wheat crop, but there still may be some repercussions of the wheat market from the psychology of dry weather in Ukraine. We've seen particularly coffee along the equator, problems with Vietnam's crop over the last 2 years, droughts in northern Brazil, the Amazon being depleted. Some of the tropical commodities, coffee, has certainly been affected. And the grain market right now is kind of on edge, whether we're going to have droughts in the Midwest this summer. Right now, crops are pretty good. I'm watching this very closely for clients. Will that heat and dryness affect the corn and soybean market? We've been in a bear market really for the last year. That's something I'm trying to figure out right now that could happen deeper into the summer. Parts of the Midwest turn hot and dry.
You're down there in Florida, Jim, and every time we speak, we talk about orange juice and orange juice futures and so on. And, you tend to think of cocoa prices and so on. I'm not sure how many people, really think about the orange juice market, but where are we at with OJ?
Well, we've had citrus greening, a disease for the last 15 years, which has wiped out 75% of the orange crop here in Florida. So the market really is very much affected by Brazil's weather. We had a drought in Brazil the last few months. And as a result, with tight supplies and more demand post-COVID for orange juice, the healthy alternative, of course, we've seen orange juice prices go over $4, unbelievable. So if we have an active hurricane season and we have one or two hit Florida, we could see higher prices later on. Right now, this jump up in orange juice here recently on the hurricanes is really more psychology than reality. And if we don't have a hurricane hit Florida and we see a rebound in Brazil's orange production next year because of La Nina, then orange juice prices a year from now could be maybe 20% or so lower than where they are right now.
That would be a relief, but not though, I guess, for orange growers, right? They benefit from higher prices. But that's the thing, we get such volatility in commodities markets, and it is all about feelings and forecasts and sort of a reaction. And we were speaking earlier about Joe Biden, and David Weston was saying how important it is for the campaign to realize that they don't need to react quickly. They can wait for something to happen. They can just, be calm. There's no need for like a hydraulic reaction. But that's exactly what commodity markets do. There is this hydraulic reaction immediately when they think something is coming down the pike, right?
It's not like holding Apple or Amazon or NVIDIA. Pitches up several thousand%. Commodities are so volatile, and 90% of people lose money in commodities because they get in after the fact. What I try to do is try to second guess models when people are long, what's going to make me become bearish a certain commodity, and maybe buy puts or sell calls as opposed to selling futures, which have more risk. When everybody's short a market, like they've been in grains over the last year because of big global crops and poor demand, what can change that? When do people that are short run for the hills? And that's what I kind of try to do in my newsletter, Weather Wealth. I've been doing this for 35 years, but using options is really the safest play in many of these markets, from crude oil, natural gas, to grains and soft commodities.
So, Jim, it raises the question, what do you think the market is getting wrong right now?
What is getting wrong? Well, the markets never lie, do they? I think
I've heard that.
People expected natural gas prices to soar on a hot summer. We saw natural gas go to $3 3 weeks ago. On the psychology, not reality, that the Midwest and Northeast would have a record hot summer. No, the heat is really out west. Fires decimating potentially the wineries again, maybe affecting some REITs and some bond markets, some city municipalities out in California. So the market was wrong about natural gas. We've had 5 warm winters in a row, a glut of supplies. It's going to take one hurricane after another to eat into supplies in the Gulf of Mexico, and a really, really hot late August, September, and then a cold winter for prices to go back above $3 to $3.50, something that I don't see happening anytime soon.
Jim, what do you think should be on our investing audience's radar that isn't on there right now? What should they be watching for?
Well, the grain market has been in the doldrums, and now we have a drought developing in the Ukraine. The Midwest crops are generally pretty good right now, except for some flooding in the northwest part of Iowa and Minnesota and Nebraska. If that turns to hot and dry during the critical pollination and pod setting stage for corn and soybeans over the next 6 to 8 weeks, that's something that is a possible bull market later on. I think from a bearish perspective, we saw chocolate prices, right, cocoa, go to historical levels with over 500% rally, whatever, over the last year and a half. I think with La Nina forming later this fall and winter, being bearish sugar, being bearish some of the tropical commodities is something that I'm looking at longer term. Selling call options, buying puts on rallies. If we see a rebound in global production of soft commodities, is something that's on my radar now for the next 8 to 12 months.
Jim Romer, he publishes the Weather Wealth newsletter. They also call him Dr. Weather.
Dr. Weather.
Dr. Weather, that's what they call him.
You know why?
Can he doctor the weather?
Why do they call you Dr. Weather?
All my friends from college in Vermont won't talk to me. They all have PhDs. I have a PhD in life because I was doing weather forecasting for like 40 ski resorts from Stowe to Killington and somehow they thought it was good. Maybe they were wrong, but I was pretty accurate 20 years ago forecasting the weather for ski areas.
Oh, so it was a serious moniker, and there we were thinking it was all a joke.
Jim Romer, Dr. Weather. Catch him on the slopes.
Down here with sharks. The sharks down in Florida. There's no snow.
Yeah, exactly.
It's true, though. He needs to doctor this weather.
Catch him on the slopes in Vermont in the winter. He's joining us from Sarasota, Florida. Vonnie,